Are you ready? Let's go!
Don't you sometimes just want to talk about everything? You know, there's days when you can just talk about anything. Need to sit back and chat about nothing at all? Nothing But Julie, coming at you with fun and creative topics and interviews.
Did you hear Julie's podcast? She's got the greatest topics.
Come join the chat about everything, anything, and nothing. So unwind and tune in to Nothing But Julie. Great topics and cool interviews with some pretty awesome people. And now, without further delay, here's Nothing But Julie.
What's up, everybody? This is Julie Schrager, your host of Nothing But Julie podcast, and today I am actually going to be discussing things that you know or can learn in 10 minutes that will be useful for the rest of your life. And I am on the Quora.com website, which is kind of like Reddit. And it's a public forum. So I'm not exactly going to be giving you the full name of those people that have put these posts here in public, even though it's public, but I'm not going to. I'll just give you maybe like their first or their last name. So, you ready? Here we go. Have you ever done a PowerPoint presentation? I know I have. I've done more than I can remember throughout my lifetime. This is something that I knew about, but that many do not. And it's so simple. If you want to save a PowerPoint presentation, you should save it as a .pps instead of .ppt, which makes it directly start the PowerPoint presentation. And this is from Anonymous. That I knew about only because I'm crazy techie and I love finding out all this information. But for the general public, a lot of people don't realize these little hacks. So you can save it as a .pps instead of a .ppt, which is the extension. Like if you're saving a document and you name it, August 2021, it automatically, if you scroll down, you can save it as a PPS. So, and what I mean by scroll down is when you click on Save As, there is a menu, a drop-down menu in that window, and it allows you to choose from different, what they call extensions. Now, if it's not there, you can save it regularly, let's say to your desktop, and then you can rename it. And when you rename it, you can add the new PPS extension. So that's pretty cool. Also, this person said, jump starting a car. Now, okay, let's read this. Red terminal on jumper to red terminal on jumpy. Black terminal on jumper to any metal part of the frame. If you see sparks, it's legit on the jumpy. And then it says rev the jumper and then turn on the jumpy. I am not totally following this, but it sounds really good. Cry no more from a mosquito bite. Press a hot spoon onto the spot. The heat will destroy the protein that caused the reaction and the itching will stop. Well, I never knew that one. So again, this was by Anonymous, March 30th, 2014 on Quora.com. If you have been smoking weed, meth and morphine at your house, parents are gone for the week. This is, I am quoting what this person wrote. And you're just relaxing and you hear the garage door open and your parents are back and your room looks like, well, pretty much destroyed from all the stuff that you have, and buds have been hanging out and it's all over the place and it's smoky. It says to clear the smoke, just soak half of a towel in water. Wring out the excess water. Holding the dry end, swirl the wet portion carefully in a circle over your head, and that will get rid of the smoke. Well, that's pretty interesting. Not that I need it, or for the adults that are listening. Well, then again, if the adults that are listening have young children, well, then there you go. I don't think that gets rid of the smell, though. I'm assuming it absorbs the smoke, but I don't think that it really gets rid of the smell. I don't know about that one. Okay, look at your keyboard. There's stuff everywhere, including germs. Ew. So this is an easy way to clean in between your keyboard. Well, this is actually kind of a pretty cool hack. They use a Post-it. That's it. They just use a Post-it and they put it in between the different rows of the keyboard and the columns. Well, not that there's columns, but in between the keys. That is pretty cool. I didn't know about that one. I'm going to try that one. All right, let's move on because this person has a lot of links that I'm not going to click. Excuse me. So let's see. Tie a rubber band around the inside of your shorts pocket to keep your valuables safe while you go out for a run. Such a simple hack that I wouldn't have thought of doing. And they're showing a picture of the inside of the shorts where the pocket is, and they put a rubber band right above their personal items. Not a bad idea. All right, I kind of like that one. And that is from Nikhil. And that was back in 2020. All right, moving on. So this person says, you know what? I'm not going to read this one because it looks dangerous. But they have so many different funny hacks on here that I never would have thought of doing. Put 2 pieces of bread in the toaster slot, in the same toaster slot for a perfect toasted sandwich. Ugh. Simple things. All right. Let's see, what else? Money cannot make a human happy for a long time. It will always be short-lived. Money solves many problems. In order to be happy, you need to look inside yourself. So don't be surprised if you find someone crying and sad in a Rolls Royce. That's from someone by the name of Harsh in 2019. Okay, let's find something really good. This is kind of interesting. And this was back in 2014, and this was by someone by the name of Sam. He says buy duplicate chargers for phones, tablets, and laptops. And he says there's 2 reasons for this. The first is that they are nearly irreplaceable items that would impact your life if you lose them. But he says it's better to buy a backup now than have to work on your laptop or let things die. But also he says because you have multiple locations where you work in your house. And so buying something in duplicate would help. So Arpit in 2014, how to fall asleep faster. This is something I probably would not have thought of. He says, try to stay awake. Challenge yourself to stay up. Your mind will actually rebel. He says it's called sleep paradox. And if you keep your eyes open and you keep repeating, I will not sleep, the brain doesn't process negatives well. So it interprets this as an instruction to sleep, and eye muscles tire quickly. I don't know. Is that something that I should try? Because I really have a lot of trouble sleeping. In order to fall asleep faster, he also says rewind your day. Remembering mundane details in reverse actually clears your mind of worries. Recall conversations, sights, and sounds as you go. He also says roll your eyes and meditation. Well, I know that one. Hum to yourself. Make a worry list and act dead. Act dead. Don't move any part of your body. Close your eyes and make a conscious effort to remain idle for 10 minutes. Oh, that one would not work with me at all. Not at all. That would probably make it a lot worse for me. Oh my God. Okay, moving on. So this person, well, I'm not going to, this is all about stretches that you can do when you don't have time, to go to the gym. But there's really a lot of great, interesting things. I really do like this website. I like Reddit also. But Quora I really, really like as well. So moving on, I think that there's a lot of hacks, nowadays that you can try. Like this person, I can't really pronounce his name, Shubham, in 2018, there is a website that you can actually go to for all these crazy hacks. But I've seen this before with chopsticks. You can get like like a clothespin, like a wooden or plastic clothespin, and you can remove the spring. And you put the spring in between the two chopsticks. I mean, really? It can teach someone how to use chopsticks too. That's pretty cool too. Although I know how to use chopsticks, but there are so many things. I remember seeing a hack about moving, and what people did was they took their luggage, their suitcases, and they would put their clothes in their suitcases, in their actual suitcases. And that's what they would use when they moved, as much as they could fit. So instead of having to get extra boxes and, you're taking your empty suitcases and you're moving with them, so you might as well, I guess, make it a lot easier. They say the easiest way also to pack and unpack your clothes. Oh my God, this is genius. It saves so much time. You basically put the bottom part of your clothes in a garbage bag. Oh my God. And then the top of your clothes all have hangers. And then when you move and you get to your destination, all you have to do is take this lump of clothes that are inside, or half inside the garbage bags, and just go ahead and hang them up. Oh my God. I love this one. Okay. Using cupcake liners to keep bugs out of drinks at an outdoor party. This is very cute. They actually took cupcake liners and they put a hole in the center, put it over the top of the glass, and then put a straw. I love this. They're like little mini paper hats. This is such a great, great, great idea. I really, really love that one. By the way, did you see those cute little portable battery operated / solar little teeny fans that they're fans, but they have these like long, almost like windmill pieces to keep flies away from your food when you're outdoors. Isn't that great? Such a good idea. Okay, moving on. This is pretty cool too. It's all about sleep and that it's divided into 5 stages, and that scientists really don't know much about sleeping patterns. And it actually gives really great tips. They say that stage 1, you're in your light sleep, and that your muscle activity slows down. Stage 2 is when your breathing pattern and heart rate slows. And then you have a slight decrease in body temperature. And then stage 3 is deep sleep, which is the REM sleep. and your brain begins to generate slow delta waves. Stage 4 is a very, very deep sleep. And stage 5 is rapid eye movement, which is REM. Okay, so that's when it hits. Brainwaves speed up and dreaming occurs, muscles relax. I didn't know that there were 5 stages. That's pretty cool to know. Also, did you know, this is really, really cool to know. And this is by Akash in 2014. Spur of the moment. And he helped his fingers, quote, cheat death. So what do you do when you're near frostbite conditions and your hands or your fingers are starting to numb? You can't even wiggle your fingers. He says, pee on them. Yes, it may appear bullshit, but it is when it struck me. I was almost about to lose my fingers due to a frostbite attack. And he was on a motorcycle trip, and he actually peed on his hand. That is crazy insightful. It's like I've read about pee also, that you can drink it. Well, I think that you have to cover it and wait a day, but can you just imagine? It's probably very warm. He said that he tried warming his hands on the bike's exhaust, but other than burnt skin, he couldn't achieve anything. And so he managed to zip down his jeans. He peed on his hand, and he said it worked like magic, that his fingers felt a surge of blood rushing through the veins. Well, there you go, guys. Pee is not just, to be flushed down the toilet. But he did say that it was just a matter of seconds between the idea of peeing on his hand struck him. That's pretty cool. Pee, guys. But apparently there's some science behind the phenomenon that, excuse me. So liquids expand more than solids when it comes to heating. So what he said he could understand was that instant warmth was all of his fingers needing, and not the high heat focused on a particular part, like touching the exhaust. So he's saying putting your hand in hot water scalds a larger area if, the contact is even for a fraction of a second. Well, there you go. That's pretty cool. But pee obviously is not scalding, it's just warm. Another thing that I remember from when I was a kid was also one of the warmest parts of your body are your underarms. So you take your hands, you put them under your arms, and that can help to heat up his hands, although I guess he didn't think of that at the time. But it's something that I've known about for a long time. Okay, this comes from Vinith back in July. Simple cooking hacks. Scooping peanut butter without it sticking to the spoon. Oh my God, what? I have to read this one. All right, now, I have an issue with this. So you basically dip the spoon in water before scooping out peanut butter. That's it? You just put water? Okay. Can't be that simple. And is it cold water, warm water, temperature, room temperature water? Okay, I'm definitely going to try this. Water on the spoon before you scoop the peanut butter. Okay, that one is a definite hack. So I also think that, I think I read somewhere a little bit of oil or even really cold water can help. I love these hacks. All right, let's see. I don't like this one. I'm not going to read it to you. This is a good one. So it's all about self-defense. Okay. Vulnerable parts of the attacker. Eyes, nose, throat, solar plexus, which is kind of in the chest area, groin, and knee. That's great, but I'm 5'3", and it's not like, I'm a boxer or anything. I would probably be more afraid to do it, but they say if you're grabbed by the front, oof, move your head forward and make a fist in front of your pelvis, and then you hit the attacker's nose with your forehead. Wow. It's just having to remember all of this stuff, which is why you go to self-defense classes and you do it repeatedly. That's a pretty good one. Now, this is something I don't know if I totally agree with about saving your money monthly, especially with people who are so strapped. So, this person talks about taking control of your life. They talk about taking the most important things that you want to do and put them in 3 spheres. Almost, I guess, like a Zen diagram. And you can approach it that way. You know, things that you want to do on the left circle, that you want to do immediately, things that possibly you might want to do in the future. And then in the center, you would put probably the most important things and things in the future. So, you know, it's like a bucket list kind of, which is a lot of fun. Check this out. This is by Temin Jesu in 2017. He says, if you want to remove unwanted people, background, or tourists from photos, you set up your camera on a tripod stand and you take a shot every 10 seconds until you have like 10 or 15 shots. Now, if you use Photoshop, it says that you should go into Photoshop and click File, Scripts, Statistics, and choose Median, and select the pictures you took. And Photoshop sees what's different in the images and removes it from the photos. Wow. Okay, I got to try that one too. Know if someone's lying to you. I don't know about this one. In order to tell if someone is lying to you, just stare at their face. There are a number of expressions and reactions that will give them away. I don't know if I agree with that one. If someone is going to stare at me in my face and I make one of these expressions, it doesn't mean that I'm lying. It means that I'm uncomfortable and you're staring at me and you're in my space and I'm probably thinking, what in the F is wrong with you that you are staring at me? I don't know too much about that one. If anything, I would think it would be something you would do when you're in an uncomfortable spot or situation. Okay, so I am going to be reading you some crazy stories. Some are from BuzzFeed, which I am going to actually be reading to you. There is the mystery handprint, okay? So this girl got out of the shower and called her boyfriend into the bathroom. She wanted to show him something. And there was a very strange handprint on the mirror. Now, the boyfriend lived alone, and she was basically the only other person that was in his house in a few years. So they placed their handprints on the side of this mystery handprint for reference, and neither looked like neither one looked like anything like the mystery print. And he says to this day, he has no idea how that handprint got there. Oh my God. That's creepy. Wow. Okay. This person writes about a reoccurring nightmare. Goes on to say, when I was in elementary school, he used to have this dream, the same dream every weekend, starting on Saturday when he would go to sleep. And then he'd get up in the middle of the night and he would vomit. He said that the dream was always a bunch of numbers, just random jumbled up numbers all over the place. And he never understood why this happened. And the same dream would happen on the same night every week. He always thinks about that and wonders what it meant. Or was it just a weird coincidence? That one I don't even know about. I know that there are some social workers and psychiatrists and psychologists that listen to my podcast. I don't know, maybe you have some insight. If you do, please DM me, because I'm curious why something like that, would happen. That's very curious to me. Okay. And this person's literal dream came true. She goes on to say that it's very strange because it was so long ago. So she feels like she's been remembering things wrong, but she was a young kid. She was at the grocery store and she saw this small helicopter, like a toy helicopter she really wanted and didn't get. But the memory of it, for some reason, was stuck in her head. And nights later, she had this dream that she was actually playing with the toy helicopter. But then she came to the realization that it was just a dream. And that in this dream, the young version of her thought, if I put it under my pillow, it would still be there when I woke up. And she said after that, she would wake up and look under the pillow. And she said it was right where I left it in her dream. But as a kid, she wasn't surprised that it was there. But years later, she has no clue how the toy helicopter got underneath her pillow. Oh my God. That's really, I don't know, that's a little spooky. Now let me tell you a quick story. When I moved into my home, I have a friend who swore that she had a ghost in her home because she, at the same time every night, would hear rattling of pots in her kitchen. And then all of a sudden, it was gone. Well, fast forward maybe like 6 months. I was dead asleep, only to be woken up by the rattling of pots. Now, when I first woke up, I was like, oh, come on, please. So I get up, I go look in the kitchen. All the pots are in the same spot. Everything is fine. And then the next night I heard it. It was very slight. I hadn't fallen asleep. I was awake. And I woke up my husband. And I said, listen. And he heard it. After a few minutes after he woke up, he heard it. He gets up to go look. He doesn't see anything. The next night, both of us stayed up. And we both heard the same sound. As soon as we heard it, we jumped up and went to go look in the kitchen as we heard it. We approached the kitchen and it stopped. Now we did the same thing the next night when we heard the same noise, and we approached the kitchen and it stopped again. Oh my God. So weird. So weird. So weird. So after that night, we didn't hear it. Check this out though. A friend of mine who lives up the street contacted me that she now heard the rattling in her house. I was like, oh, come on. I went to her home and we stayed up all night and we heard the rattling. And as soon as we approached the kitchen, it stopped. I thought we must have had our homes built on some kind of like sacred Indian ground or American Indian or Native American. And then I think that it might have just stopped after that in general. But I am telling you, I was freaking out. Freaking out. There was no way that this could have been happening, but it was. It was truly happening. We all had the same experience. And I actually inquired to find out, what was on this land beforehand. Well, guess what? It turns out that many Indian reservations or Native American reservations were on not just our area, but it's all throughout Florida. The majority of the state was an Indian reservation. So I started thinking, oh my God, this had to have been Indian reservation. I mean, what do you think? I don't know. All I know is that is the truth. It really did happen. Spooky, scary stuff right there. And I actually didn't want to believe it, but I did. Did you ever hear of the Martin family? This is kind of like a spooky story. This was back in 1958, and this is through Vox.com. It's not much of a mystery, but it was about the Martin family in Oregon in 1958, but it's a little bit eerie. And also it's the Charlie Project .com that I'm getting my information from. So let me tell you this very eerie story. Someone by the name of Barbie, she had disappeared with her family, with her father by the name of Kenneth, her mom, whose name was Barbara, and her sisters, Susan, who was 13, and Virginia, who was 11. Their last name was Martin. Last seen in Portland, Oregon, their hometown, in 1958, December 7th, 1958. And they went in their station wagon en route for Columbia, and they were going to collect what they say is greenery to decorate their home for Christmas. And so they stopped at a gas station, and apparently they were seen leaving a restaurant in Oregon in the late afternoon. And apparently Kenneth Martin was carrying cameras. They never got back home. Everything in their home was left as it was. Nothing was taken. No one went in there to rob it. Even the past dishes of dinner were still in the sink. And apparently they had money, a nice amount of money in their bank accounts. And back in February of 1959, a researcher found tire tracks that actually matched the Martins' vehicle. And it was heading off a cliff near Oregon. And this cliff led into the Columbia River. And in May of that year, in 1959, there was a rig near the site of where the tire tracks were found. And this rig was had something heavy and metal on its anchor. And they believe it could have been the missing car. So a few days later, the Virginia and Susan's bodies were found downstream, and they had both drowned. It's so sad. So the girls' photos were posted, and the cause of death was not determined just because they were so horribly decomposed. But Virginia's body had a hole in the head. And the parents, Kenneth and Barbara's remains, were never recovered. So the police believe that they either accidentally drove their car into the river, or that they could have been abducted. And maybe they were abducted and were left inside the car and was pushed off a cliff. So the only surviving member was Donald, the oldest son, who apparently was in the Navy. He was stationed in New York at the time of this disaster. And the county detective who was in charge of the investigation believed that the family definitely had some foul play because they say it was uncharacteristic for the father, Kenneth, to just leave home that time of day, because apparently he didn't like driving in the dark. And someone found a gun with blood near an abandoned stolen car. And this was turned over to the police, and it was linked later on to Donald, the son, who had apparently stolen it from a store years prior to his family's disappearance, but yet it was never processed for evidence. So the police suspected that Donald was involved, but it was because they couldn't find anyone else that had a motive. Apparently, the son had a poor relationship with his family. He never really came back home during the search for them. Apparently, he did speak to the police who was investigating. So he did return back in June of 1959 to settle the estate, but he could not think of anyone that might have had any reason to hurt his family. So an attempt was made to search the river for any kind of evidence, but it was called off when a diver almost died, and there were no further searches. So meanwhile, the father, the mother, and Barbie are still considered missing. Donald died in 2003. What do you think about that? That's crazy. These cold case murders and stories. It's like, I always wonder what people think about this. You know, it's scary when you find certain types of or forms of evidence and you can't conclude what might have happened. It's very scary. Now, here's another one. Evelyn Grace Hartley. Again, the Charlie Project. She was missing since 1953 from Wisconsin. She was born in 1937. So she was, 15 years old at the time that this happened. And she was babysitting a 20-month-old girl at the home of a college professor on the evening of October 24th, 1953. She was babysitting for someone by the name of Rasmussen and his wife, and she also babysat for other residents, and they were attending the homecoming game. So the family had a regular babysitter, but she planned on going to homecoming that night. So Evelyn was hired to replace her, and she was supposed to call her parents at 8:30 to check in, but she never did. Now, her father tried to call her several times, but she never answered. So he got worried, of course. So he went to their Rasmussen's house to check on her. The doors were locked and the lights and the radio was on. He also noticed the baby was fine, asleep in her crib, but yet he couldn't find his daughter. It looked like the living room furniture was rearranged. And Evelyn had brought some school books, some textbooks with her. They were scattered. One of her shoes and her glasses were on the living room floor. And by the way, her glasses were broken. He found her other shoe in the basement. Now, all of the windows in the house were locked, but a basement window was not. And the screen was taken out and was leaning against a wall outside. He also discovered a stepladder that was by the basement window that belonged to the Rasmussens. Apparently, they were painting the basement and they were using it. And there were pry marks on other windows. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on here. He also noticed footprints from a pair of sneakers that were in the basement and in the living room. So this all looks like indicative forced entry, right? He then noticed a significant amount of blood, which apparently turned out to be Evelyn's type, inside the house near the basement window and outside in the yard. There were pools of blood in the yard. One was about 18 inches in diameter, and there was also a bloody handprint, wow, on the wall of the garage. Stains were on the home of a neighbor's house. So the authorities believed that Evelyn was abducted and probably dragged through the yard. And maybe when the kidnappers stopped, that's when the blood pooled in those areas. Apparently they had dogs, tracker dogs, who were able to trace Evelyn's scent for 2 blocks. And then the trail was lost. So they believe it was at that point that the abductors put Evelyn in a car. And apparently there was one neighbor who saw a light-colored car going around the neighborhood. And another resident said that they had heard screams at about 7 o'clock, but they just assumed that it was children playing. But that was around the time that Evelyn was abducted. So 2 days after Evelyn disappeared, a man, a local, his name was Ed, he said that at about 7:15 that night, he almost hit a green 2-toned Buick that was speeding. And he noticed that there were 2 men and a girl inside. He said that one man was driving and the other was with the girl in the back, and that she seemed a little slumped forward. And he'd seen the car's occupants a few minutes earlier where the blood was found. This is real. These stories just upset me so much, especially when it's, children that's involved. This man just assumed that they were on their way to the homecoming game. He didn't realize the significance of what was going on, but his information became public. But his name was withdrawn from media for almost 50 years after Evelyn's disappearance. Days after Evelyn was abducted, her underwear and her bra that they feel was Evelyn's was found near a highway about 2 miles away from the abduction, stained with blood. And also a pair of men's pants were found blood-stained along the same road about 4 miles away. But they don't know if there's a connection. Remember at this time, they didn't have any kind of DNA tests. So things were very difficult back then when it came to murders, abductions, and all that. And a pair of sneakers were found also, blood-stained. Apparently, the soles were very similar to the footprints that they found near where Evelyn was last seen. So these shoes apparently had a very distinctive circular pattern on the bottom, which meant that their owner most likely frequently operated a motorbike. So amazing how they came up with this. And they had actually determined that 2 different people had worn those shoes. So within about 800 feet of these shoes was a denim jacket with blood stains on the front and the back sleeves and the sleeves. And there were some metal paint flecks on it. So there was a worn mark running the entire width of this jacket, possibly, they think, from a safety harness. And the blood on the jacket was Evelyn's type. And this is so bizarre. And the blood smears found at the house she was taken from were made by cloth with the characteristics of denim. But the jacket was worn by her kidnapper. But it appeared to be too small for a person big enough to wear a size 11 shoe. So one investigator said that based on the pattern of wear on the jacket and the way the jacket was cut off, that they worked as a steeple jack. So her kidnapping, Evelyn's kidnapping, apparently sparked one of the biggest searches in Wisconsin history. Investigators conducted mass searches of vehicles, gave lie detector tests to students at Evelyn's school. They took the jacket to different communities, displayed it to thousands of people. No one recognized them, and many of the suspects were questioned over the years, but there was no evidence to implicate anyone. Some people suspected a man by the name of Edward Gein, who might have been involved, because he was visiting relatives in the nearby area, just blocks from the home where she was babysitting. And in 1957, the police questioned him about the disappearance and found human remains all over his house. He apparently had killed 2 women and dug up other women's bodies in this cemetery and mutilated them. Oh my God. So he was basically declared insane and died in a mental institution in 1984, but no trace of Evelyn was found on or near his property, and he denied having any involvement in her case. Yet he still has not been completely cleared. So Evelyn was a junior in high school at the time of her abduction. She had straight A average. She was involved in tons of school activities. She played the piano, sang in choir at a church. She had a few dates with boys, but she is the youngest, or was the youngest, of 4 children. Her parents are deceased, and it is an unresolved case. This is crazy when you think about it. These abductions, these stories, very scary, very, very sad, especially when you can't come to any conclusion. And I know one person that I've known for many, many years, who's a private investigator who has unsolved cases, and he can't sleep at night. He can't just like move on with his life because of these unresolved cases. He's bothered by them to the point where it has affected his life. And he no longer does this as a job because the stress was just too much. He got himself emotionally involved. Whereas some people who do this type of work can separate from their job. I couldn't. This is not something I could do. But there are some really crazy stories out there that we haven't even touched the surface of. And some crazy stories that don't involve abduction or death. But I really just wanted to kind of mix in a whole lot of different things, different hacks, crazy stories, creepy, unbelievable stories. Next week, I'm going to be doing the hidden meaning behind nursery rhymes and songs. I bet you didn't realize that there are some dark hidden meanings behind a huge percentage of nursery rhymes that we've been singing to our children over the years. So anyway, I hope you like this podcast. If you want to subscribe, feel free to do so. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Nothing But Julie. And if you go onto Instagram, you can click on my link in the bio where you can find even more ways of hearing me and touching base with me. Have a wonderful rest of your week.